What's going on, gangsters? MJ75. If you didn't already know, I'm here in the movie cave tonight, and I decided to talk about slashers. Oh yeah, just right in time. The great music of John Carpenter. But anyway, I'm going to talk to you about a documentary that I watched the other day, which I've watched probably 6,000 times. It's called Goin to Pieces. The Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film. And it starts out all the way back to where it kind of talks about the beginning and where the beginning come from. And they thought the beginning came from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which I don't know about. I kind of disagree a little bit, because old Norman, he didn't kill a whole lot of people like the normal slasher movie does. But that's where they kind of put the origin of it in Psycho. It's a really good documentary. You have to check it out. I do have it, but it's a burnt disc, and don't have no cover or nothing to show you. But it's called Goin to Pieces: The Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film. So you have to check it out, gangsters. It starts out with Psycho, and it goes up to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the 70s, early 70s. Everybody knows that. I really think that's kind of where it starts, but you know, it talks about that. That's a classic film, and I don't really have a whole lot to say on that. I am looking forward to the 3D version coming out. I think it's next year. I'm not really for sure. The Michaels took off and went away. What I'm listening to is the soundtrack of Halloween, and talking about the next movie. Well, it is Halloween. They talked about that from 1978. There's where it really started off. I like Halloween, but I have my faults with it. You know, I don't know, gangsters. Michael Myers he's pretty cool and everything, but I have a problem with certain parts of that movie. The music makes everything. It's the best soundtrack music ever. That's why I'm playing it for this video. But otherwise, Michael goes to a crazy nut place when he's little, and then all of a sudden he decides to break out one night. But that's the funny thing, that the old gangster knows how to drive a car, and he drives it pretty well. So you know, stuff like that is funny. But you know, Michael is actually just a human. That's what I don't understand in that movie, because if you get shot in the chest 5-6 times by Donald Pleasant, you should have been dead at the end of the movie. But no, they had to make a sequel, and then far on out from there, Halloween kept going. The first two movies are my favorite, and they put a lot on that. You know, Halloween 1 and 2, and it's almost basically the same night. You know, it leaves right off. Goin to Pieces also goes from there, and of course I've got my favorite on, Jason, Friday the 13th, 1980. They start talking about Jason, and of course everybody knows the first Friday the 13th and all this and that. They're talking about making, Sean Cunningham talks about it. They interview him, real good interview with him. Talks to Tom Savini about doing the makeup and everything. And they talk about how it grossed so much money. It was funny because they was talking about like 18 days, and it made, I don't know, I can't remember how many thousands. It was just in the thousands. And it's funny because nowadays, you know, like The Dark Knight or something opens up, and 3 days it's made 160 million. But movies cost a lot less back then, so that's just the way it goes. Back then, probably movies went with $2 or $3. Earliest I can remember is $3.75, gangsters. I don't know. But then we go from there, and they talk about all these other mentions of different movies. My Bloody Valentine. I got a cheat sheet over here because I don't want to leave some of the really important ones out. They talk about the Prowler. Now, a lot of people don't like the Prowler. I can't talk tonight. The Prowler. But I really love the Prowler. I have a problem speaking with that. Joseph Zito directed that, which also directed Friday the 13th Part 4, which is the shirt that I am wearing. And does it feel like I'm reading something? You know, you don't really get a whole lot from Movie John doing these types of videos, and this is just something I just wanted to talk about. I don't know. I don't always just do updates and stuff, but I'm rambling off. They talk about Terror Train. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis comes back, and she's doing another horror movie after Halloween. Back with the music again. And as soon as I said Halloween, that's pretty weird. They talk about the forest. If you've ever seen that, the killer looks like George Lucas. It's horrible. I have it in my collection, but I just bought it for shits and giggles. Where else? They talked about The Burning. Now, I like The Burning, but they talk about The Burning and The Prowler, which is better. I've heard this on Facebook, YouTube, everything. I like The Prowler better. I don't know why, gangsters. I like the music, the feel of it. I know it kind of looks like it kind of copies My Bloody Valentine, but that's just the way it goes, you know. Sometimes people do copy stuff, and nowadays they remake everything. So back then, what's it going to hurt a gangster to kind of take a little bit away from one movie to the next? I mean, it's just the format, you know. They took the format and they took it and they ran with it. What else do we got over here? They talked about the Italian horror movies too, that, you know, and that's the same way. Friday the 13th took away from Twitch of the Death Nerve. You know, they took away from that movie with the spike thing to the back while the girl and the guy is making it on, and, you know, they took it away from that too. So, you know, there's a lot of movies that do that kind of stuff, gangsters. So, and after a while, you gotta, what can you come up with, you know, besides torture movies? And I don't really dig that kind of stuff. So we go into that, and then here comes, everything's been washed and run, and just so many other shit ass movies comes out, and it don't do no good at the theaters, and and at that point you don't care. You're a horror fan, you go just see the blood, guts, whatever. But then Freddy comes out, and that's a whole different story there, because that one's completely different. And I love how Wes Craven came up with Freddy, as he explains on there, and I'll let you watch it just to see that, because I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm just here to tell you a little bit of this and that, because I'm not the greatest reviewer. I do know that. Damn, gangsters, that kind of scared me a little bit. But, you know, and it also goes all the way up into the 90s, where the early part of the 90s, the slasher films were dead until Wes Craven brought Scream back. Now, I admit, this first Scream was pretty good. The second one was alright. About the third one, I got wore out on it. And then, you know, they took a break for a long time. I think it's 12 years before the fourth one. That's what I like about movies that do that. They take a break. Not like Saw movies, where it goes every year you got a new one coming out. Take a break a little while. Let us forget about it. And then it comes back, and it makes you more excited. You know what I mean, gangster? But go out and check. If you got Netflix, get on there, type in Goin to Pieces, the rise and fall of the slasher film. Check it out. That's where you can get it nowadays, because you can't go to rent stuff no more, because everything's gone, and you sure ain't gonna find this in Redbox. But go on Netflix, check it out. If you're a slasher fan, you will love the documentary. And I've got to go right now. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time and bore you, but I just wanted to talk a little bit. MJ75 talks slashers.